All right. Hello, and welcome to episode number 75 of the Gaming Perspective podcast, one of the best podcasts on a Tuesday, trademarked and sanctioned by absolutely nobody. I am your host, Nicholas Downey, and I'm glad to be here on another Tuesday. Yeah, it is Tuesday. It is Tuesday night. Long weekends throw me off. It was Thanksgiving up here in Candleland, the properly observed time for the Thanksgiving holidays. So yeah, I'm full of turkey, beer, and good times, and trying to get back to reality right now. So joining me and anchoring me to reality is my good friend, Mr. Samuel Tolbert.
That's right. I'm here to talk good games, here to talk about playing games, and I'm here to drag him back down to reality. I've never seen someone have a great idea that I didn't want to just bring him back down and crush their dreams. It's what I live for. So
This is true. And also joining me, as always, from the beautiful lands of Florida, Mr. Eric Jackson.
Gentlemen, how you doing? Happy Tuesday.
It is Tuesday.
It is Tuesday. It has been all day.
And tomorrow will be Wednesday.
Yep.
So it's been I'm going to say it's been a midweek. There's been a couple of things that have popped up. But as always, it's been a couple of things that got blown into exponentially large things. So we're going to sift right past that right now. We're going to talk about what we've been playing this week, of course. So I'm going to start with Eric for this one.
All right. Deathloop. That's pretty much. I'm finally getting some time in with Deathloop, and so far it's been arcane goodness. And, I might be a bit of a stan, could be, but I'm okay with that. But no, I'm absolutely enjoying it. I'm still fairly early in the game, just kind of got my first ability and infused myself. So now I can actually keep some abilities and keep some weapons and things like that, and starting to kind of, figure out, what gathering information means, gathering information does, as far as figuring out how to break the loop. But it's really cool like how the game unfolds, like as far as the story goes, and you're learning about these visionaries and these different things that are going on. So it's very intriguing. Actually, as I'm playing this game, I'm thinking too, like, man, how cool like a show this could be, like Netflix or something like that. Maybe I feel different after the fact, but just in general, what's there now seems like pretty cool.
No, I hadn't thought about that, honestly, Eric, but now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, even the very loop nature of it fits that serialized format very well. You can have joke episodes, you can have episodes of Colt trying this, you could have one focusing on Juliana, or even the Visionaries. Take a break from those two and focus on each of the Visionaries and what they're up to. Like, you can take a very tongue-in-cheek tone with it as well, but also still very hyper-violent. Like, no, I think that sounds great, actually.
Yeah, I think that could be pretty cool. But no, the mystery of this island is definitely intriguing. So I'm enjoying it, and I'm watching it unfold. So hopefully I'll have more to report back as time goes on here. But so far so good. Definitely enjoying it.
Absolutely, Deathloop's a blast. And honestly, I think my favorite character out of that whole game is what's his name? Alexis Dorsey. Oh my God, is that man a G? If you read through the computer emails between all the visionaries,
so obnoxious, so incredibly obnoxious.
It's like Arcane sat there and was like, okay, so we're gonna take the most brilliant minds and put them all onto this island, and we're gonna take one random frat fuckboy as well.
Definitely can't wait to learn more about him then.
Oh man!
Oh, you haven't run into him yet.
Mm-mm.
Oh, you're in for a treat. Yeah, just
report back. Back.
All right.
Yeah. Love that guy. Anyone who uses the username, I think it's DarkWolf69 in a messenger system, is just it's good.
Too funny.
All right, Sam, what have you been playing this week?
Yeah, so I've been playing something on my Nintendo Switch, actually, which I can't believe this year. And,
what's a Switch?
Yeah, I know, right. And I played Metroid Dread for review. Just a fun little side note. I try not to prop myself up too much, but the first ever Nintendo game I've ever reviewed. So just a fun little anecdote there. But yeah, Metroid Dread, and there's a whole history of that game we don't have time to get into now, but if you're unfamiliar with it, I encourage you to go look it up. Like, there is a whole saga behind the development of that game. It's kind of wild that it even exists at all in any way, shape, or form. So that's crazy. But here's what I will say, and this is coming from someone who the Ori games are a massive exception for me, because Ori aside, I don't really like Metroidvanias. Not modern ones. I like the older ones, like, the original Metroid games, the original Castlevania games, but I don't like a lot of the modern ones. No disrespect to developers, I just think that it's a very oversaturated genre, especially in the indie space. So that's the whole thing. Anyways, I say that to say this game is great. And if you have a Nintendo Switch, you need to be playing it. Mercury Steam understands Samus as a character, and they understand Metroid and what makes it tick. Every single ability Samus has feels good, and all the upgrades just keep on making it more powerful. So you go from just having, a handful of missiles to you're a walking tank, and you have the morph ball, and you have the power bomb, and her ice missiles, and everything. But here's another thing, and this is not to say that Metroid games have ever been easy. Like, Eric, especially, I think like there have been some difficult ones. They've had some challenges. This is the hardest one by far. Like, I do not think I have nostalgia goggles or anything. Some of the bosses in here, I've been talking to friends, I was like, yo, is it just me or is this brutal? And they're like, no, this is brutal. This is like unrelenting. So that should be a word of forewarning if you're going in, because it's not easy, but I like that. I liked having a challenge. I thought it was really fun. It was very satisfying. And also, just a fun thing is it actually moves the story of Metroid forward, because, again, Eric, you would know, I think more than Nick, the Metroid games stopped back at Fusion, and they've never actually continued that story. Like, Prime is a prequel. Federation Force, I feel icky even saying it, that was a prequel. Other M was kind of a midquel. All these games, like, they keep bouncing around, and they've never actually continued the story. Well, Metroid Dread actually continues the story. Right. And it actually goes in some interesting places. And I can't believe because the story's never been a big part of Metroid, right? That's never been the big focus. But by the end, I found myself thinking, wow, I cannot wait to see what they do next, because this is crazy that this has happened for Samus and all this other stuff. So yeah, it's a great game. It looks gorgeous considering it's on the Switch. I played it fully in handheld mode. I do not have an OLED. I am not getting an OLED, so I can't give any impressions there. Right. Sorry, people who are getting OLEDs, I am assured that it looks good. I've seen some comparison shots. It does look good, but I played it fully handheld. About 11 hours for my first playthrough. I got most of the items. I did not get a full 100%, so maybe 12, 13 if you want to get the full 100%. But yeah, if you're okay with a hard game, like Metroid Dread is good. It's really good. It actually got me to play something on my Switch. So
yeah, it's interesting. I've heard others talk about the difficulty in it, and just kind of thinking back to other Metroid games. Like you said, there's forms of challenge, but I would never say that they were difficult. They could be tricky, as far as as far as puzzles and things like that. But now, I'm hearing that this one is definitely giving some pushback, which is an interesting take. It's an interesting thing for them to kind of go that route. But I will say this. I've seen some of the discourse and back and forth online about the difficulty. But why not? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say, well, why not? Because I know there's a whole thing about games being too difficult versus, being too easy versus being, hey, why does every game have to be Dark Souls-ish, nowadays? But maybe they're trying a formula with Metroid because it's not a tremendous seller. It has its fan base, and maybe they're feeling like the people who dig a Metroid game won't have a problem with some kind of challenge and push back on it.
I mean, I think that's an interesting point, Eric, because that's the thing, right? Considering the way we talk about Metroid, it's never been a big deal.
Right.
I'm sorry, but objectively, it's one of my favorite Nintendo franchises. But objectively, the best-selling Metroid game has not reached 3 million copies sold, which is just wild. That is a wild thing to say. The Prime games sold a million each, just over 1 million each.
Yeah, those are fantastic.
Yeah, Other M bombed. Other M, I do not even think sold 600,000 copies, something nuts like that. So it is. I'm just saying it's wild. It's one of those perspective things, right? Like the way people talk about Metroid, including me, online is not reflected in reality with how many people actually buy it.
It's not mainstream.
Right.
I mean, it's popular. It's known as
it's
a Nintendo
popular
IP.
among its niche, but
Exactly.
it is not popular outside of that. So I say that's a very long-winded way of me saying I think it is very easy because everything the Switch touches seems to turn to gold for some reason. I think it is very possible this is the best-selling Metroid game of all time by a mile and a half, and that'll be very interesting to see how that informs things moving forward.
Right. Well, I can't wait till I look forward to getting into it eventually and jumping into it. I was actually able to get the special edition. So
that thing is rare. That thing is rarer than gold.
Well, it's a funny thing is like it was like when it went on the initial pre-order, it was gone like pretty quick, and then there's been like off and on like some pretty substantial drops. I think it's kind of slowing down now, but I know that like the day it launched, I was actually able to secure it for a buddy of mine as well who was looking for one. So I'm looking forward to getting into it. I'm a Metroid fan, so definitely interesting. So. And again, the discourse back and forth about value versus cost versus everything else, which we'll get into.
That's a whole thing.
And I see Glorious War is not the biggest fan of it, so that's
I mean, and like I said, I even noted in my review, I don't think the map is perfect. I think it is very easy to get lost. It's funny, like I don't like a lot of Metroidvanias, but I'm used to playing a Metroidvania, right? So I'm used to the concept of you got to blow up every single block in this room. You got to just hit everything, fire a missile at everything, put a bomb on everything, blow it up again just to be sure. But like, if you're not in that mentality, I can definitely see this being confusing in terms of, okay, where am I going next here? Like that is one thing I think the Ori games did very well is they didn't hold your hand, but they did say like, hey, your objective, it's somewhere over there, go look for it. So that is a thing. I can definitely respect that.
Yeah, and I think that's the tricky space Nintendo finds themselves in, and I think depending on what Konami's going to do, may find themselves in when it comes to Castlevania is you have so many like indie developers who cut their teeth on Nintendo games, on Castlevania games, growing up, and now they're the ones with these studios, and they're a lot of ways outdoing the OGs, in their approach and things that they're doing. So it makes it to where, let's say, like on a playing field, we didn't have some of the most like the fantastic Metroidvanias that we've had, like you mentioned, Ori, let's talk Dead Cells, like Hollow Knight, games like that. If you didn't have games like that kind of pushing forward, like, hey, I mean, Axiom Verge, I mean, that game is a love letter to Metroid in a lot of ways, filled that void and did it better than what some of the Metroid games that had done like prior to it. So if you have those on the playing field, or say you didn't, when you get something like a Metroid Dread, you may go, this is fantastic, or this is this. But when you have these things that go and push back against it, or kind of like have it to compare to, it's sort of like, it's good, but is it great?
I definitely resonate with that because I was talking with Nick before the show. I said, like, the way I would explain is this: if I think no disrespect to indie developers or anything, but if I think most Metroidvanias are down here, and let's say I think the Ori games, but especially Will of the Wisp, right? Because that game is just so perfect, is up here. I think Dread is like here. Like I think it is a very good game, but in a lot of ways, I think. I don't know. Will of the Wisp is still like the peak of the genre for me.
Right.
Like I'm not sure someone is going to, when or if ever, someone is going to like overtake that game.
Right. And I say that because I see Glorious Orb mentioned like the map, and it's like, it's gonna be picked apart and critiqued so much more because there's so many games that are like kicking ass in this genre now.
It's not the only one anymore. Right?
Yeah. So where if you've got like a new Castlevania, or when you got those Castlevania DS games, they were the ones, but now it's like, if Konami's going to go, we don't know what they're going to do as far as Castlevania goes, but let's say they drop a Castlevania and it's 2D, it's going to be held up to the standards of, like look at Bloodstained, look how well that game did.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I know you weren't on for our discussion last week when Nick and I were talking about this with the Konami thing, but I even said to him at the time, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, I said, I honestly think it would be better for Castlevania to go the 3D route because there is just so much competition and so many who, dare I say it, might be doing the whole 2D thing better.
Yeah,
You know,
that's why I said that's a tricky spot to be in. You know, so yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Metroid.
Sorry, Eric and I are done nerding out here. It's all right.
No. I actually, Jeff Grubb put out a tweet earlier this week and was basically fielding sales expectations for Metroid and everything else. And I'll put it on here because I forgot to screenshot the tweet, but I think this will easily be at 5 million by January. I think the Switch effect will be in full effect for Metroid. You got that nice Switch OLED. You need that software that kind of shows off the swole LED. And honestly, the fact that Nintendo isn't using SWOLED to sell the new Switch is just absolutely abhorrent. Terrible. It's just sitting right there, and they're not using it.
Well, there's a lot of things Nintendo isn't using, but that's a whole other topic. So we can.
Yeah.
I want to talk about it. So let me just say this. If y'all get Metroid Dread to 5 million copies by January, we might release the Metroid Prime trilogy for 2 weeks in June.
That thing that is said to exist, but they're holding on to it for some reason.
Oh my god! You know what I hate about that conspiracy, Eric? If it was anyone but Nintendo, you'd know it was garbage. Mm-hmm. But with Nintendo, they're just crazy enough to do it. They're just they literally said, no, the Mario collection is here for 6 months and then it's gone after that. And I was like, oh, okay, they're going to re-release them later in the year. No, it's gone. Yeah,
they Disney vaulted that one. But then some random, Nintendo Direct, they'll be like, hey, they're back.
You can buy them individually for $60 a piece now.
Right.
You Why are you booing? I'm right.
No, I'm not booing because, I said it before, I'll say it again. I can laugh and mock Skyward Sword HD all day long. When they drop Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, I'm going to fraud up. It is what it is, man.
That's why I always say, they can annoy the hell out of me, but then I'll be a part of the problem. When something comes up that it bees that way. I don't know, especially for me, I have a little bit more of the nostalgia factor with it than you guys do, and I'll goof on them all day and I'll talk that shit, but at the same time I'm like, yeah, go ahead.
Nintendo really be that girl in high school that's always trying to get you to go out with her, but she keeps offering more and more until you're like, you know what? I'll bite this one time. She'll be like, I've got movies. You're like, I got movies at home. And she's like, but I got dinosaur chicken nuggets. And you're like, dino chicken nuggies. Right. That's the winner.
Oddly specific, but I get what you're getting at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or she's the one that man, her voice is so annoying. Oh, here she comes. Her voice is so annoying. And then when she stops talking to you, you're like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? It's like, I haven't heard from you in a while. And then she starts talking to you a lot, and you're like, God, she's so annoying.
Hey, why did I never hang out with this person? It's like, then an hour later, oh, I remember.
Yeah. It's like the relationship with Destiny 2 for people.
No, no.
That's different.
No. My filter caught that joke. Okay. So what I've been playing a little bit of mix of things. I've been trying to get more trophies in Deathloop. I really want the platinum, but there's a specific trophy that is going to be the absolute end of me, and that is killing all the goddamn visionaries without killing an Eternalist. Friendly fire is a motherfucker. I almost had it, and I went to take my final shot at a dude, and an Eternalist ran by and just caught the bullet. I felt like I was Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, except, the Eternalist was my teammate, not the Visionary. It's depressing. But I'm making progress, so progress is progress, so I'll get that platinum eventually. I've also been playing Chernobylite, and this is the weirdest game I have played probably in, 4-5 years at least, or however many years since my friend Pedro came out. It's that level of weird. So I kind of briefly talked about it and made some Metro comparisons to it because early on it feels kind of like Metro 2033. And then it's not. So there's a whole bunch of different mechanics. The one I really want to highlight that's really unique is that you've got a health meter and a psyche meter. So it's a survival aspects. You've got to maintain your psyche and your health meter. Your health meter can deteriorate due to radiation, damage, whatever the case may be. And your psyche meter can deteriorate from seeing things that are abhorrent or committing violent acts. So basically, when you kill someone because your character's a scientist, your psyche meter goes down because, you're killing another human being. When you fight a monster for a prolonged period of time, your psyche will degrade because, the longer you spend in a room with a monster that's kind of trying to claw your eyeballs out, your psyche degrades. Now, this all sounds well and good and very fitting for a survival game. How do you think you refill your psyche meter? Well, in the most Russian way possible, of course, by drinking vodka.
Oh, God.
Right.
So in this game, you could lay waste to 7 Spetsnaz soldiers. And then as long as you drink a bottle of vodka afterwards, your psyche is completely fine and you won't have PTSD from it. I absolutely wish that wasn't the weirdest part of this game. I absolutely wish it was. But I am to the point where there's a man who is part of my party now because I didn't have an option, who basically is, I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the United States Libertarian Party runner-up at one point of Vermin Supreme. He's basically a homeless guy that wears a boot on his head.
I remember.
Yeah, this guy screams about rat leaders and how this cult's out to get him repetitively. And wears a tinfoil hat, and this is one of the weirdest games I've ever played, but I cannot put it down for the simple fact the whole premise of the game is insane because, everyone knows how Chernobyl happened, plant meltdown. If anyone's watched the HBO series, we have a pretty good idea of what that looked like. In this one, it's like, so what if Chernobyl melted down and tore a hole into another dimension? And then as the plant continues to degrade, the portal to that dimension gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And more things come out of it. That's the whole principle of this game. Basically, each day you try to accomplish different tasks and do things while this portal gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And as the portal gets bigger, bigger, and bigger, shit progressively gets more and more weird, fucked up, whatever you want to call it. It's so insane that this is from the developers that did a World War II shooter that didn't do well on Steam and did the game with Bandai Namco Get Even. And they're doing this now. And it's janky and everything else, but if you see it on sale, buy it. It's really weird. And that's my honest to God recommendation. If you like Fallout 3 and you like Stalker, go buy this because it's also got deep RPG mechanics. Like I made a decision at the start of the game. I was like, oh, this decision doesn't matter. It felt like a throwaway decision. Yeah, 3/4 of the way through that game, it completely fucked everything. And I was like, oh man, I did not see that coming back to get me. It's great. Really janky though. I cannot put enough emphasis on how janky it is. Very Metro 2033 in terms of how it controls and how you have to do everything mechanically. But still, really interesting game. And if you're into survival games, it's a must play. But yeah, that's all for that. You guys got anything else before we move on to the actual topics?
That's it for me.
That's it?
Nope. Yep.
All
Metroid.
right. Metroid. Y'all talking about it, making me want to pick it up, and I'm like, nope, don't give Nintendo money. You're encouraging them. So
it doesn't matter. You can not give them money. You can give it. They're gonna do what they're gonna do regardless.
Well, it's like I told Sam. I don't have time to play it right now. But I know I can pay full price for it whenever I want because it's a Nintendo first-party game.
There's windows, Nick. There's small windows.
I know.
You'll get like $5 off.
Yeah, I know. I bought a Switch 2 years after launch. I got Breath of the Wild for $10 off on a quote unquote mega sale.
Yeah.
But we've got some interesting industry news. At the beginning of a generation, things shuffle around a lot. I think people get a lot lost in that, and when games release, shuffling happens. And this week was kind of a bit of a shuffle week. So the first one was Arcane Leon's studio head departs after 16 years with the company. Now, I wrote a headline similar to that. I think it is important to note, because I saw a lot of people try to spin this as something very, very negative. It's important to note that he was only studio head from 2019 till currently. He had been with the company prior as a designer and a bunch of other roles throughout that time. But he's moving on to other things. He said he wanted to spend more time with his family after the launch of Deathloop. And basically, to just throw some quotes in, I'm very proud of what we accomplished with this amazing team. The successful launch of Deathloop is just another proof that Arcane has a very bright future and a unique place in our industry. And he also stated in terms of his own goals, as for my own future, my goal is to keep on helping video game companies and others to make their creative vision become a reality, since that is what I love to do. So, not likely the last time we're going to hear from him. He'll probably pop into another studio or maybe start his own venture. Who knows? But any thoughts on this? Or, Arcane doomed? Or what are we doing?
Yeah, I think they're perfectly fine. Just 16 years is a long time to be at one company. And I don't like reading into things too much, but reading into the fact that, he was studio head starting in 2019, but now he's leaving, wants to spend more time with his family. He probably decided that in combination with being there for a long time, he probably doesn't want to be a studio head. Like, that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of pressure. I can imagine deciding, like, you know what, I'm okay being a producer, or I'm okay being a creative director, but I don't want to be like the absolute person in charge. Like, I don't know. Knowing your limits is not a bad thing. I'm not trying to speak for him. I'm just saying that is a thing. And all that.
I got the vibe from his LinkedIn post very much so that it was one of those things. It sounds like he wants to be more involved in the actual creative process itself, less than the management itself. So I think that kind of lends credence to the idea that, being a studio head, you don't get to create a lot. You get to oversee a lot of stuff, but don't necessarily get to get your hands dirty as much. So that would make a lot of sense. Eric, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'll kind of just echo like what Sam was saying. 16 years is a long time. And in today's world, I mean, that is a very long time. Most people stay on a job anywhere, from, 5 to maybe 7 years, and then they're kind of like moving on to things. So 16 years, and especially in game development, is a long time to be at like one studio. So it could just simply be that thing where it's like, I'm tired. I have other interests. I've pretty much done everything I can do here. And a lot of times when you see guys say this, they say what he said, like he wants to focus on family. It's hours upon hours upon hours, and stressing. And that's like a lot of creative realms or top positions in almost any company. You're spending more time usually away from home, than you're doing anything else. So I can definitely see that. I don't think it's anything, sinister. I know that's typically where people go like, oh boy, this means this means that. It's like, no, sometimes it's simply just time to go. Yeah. And sometimes you I don't know, you kind of peak. There's people with newer ideas, better ideas. You may be kind of just tapped out.
I mean, that's what I mean. It's like, I'm not trying to insult anyone or speak for this guy, but knowing your limits is not a bad thing.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah. It's like anything too. It's just like, sometimes it's time to move before someone moves you. That could be a thing too. And it's just like, professional athletes, we've all seen it, when they've stayed too long. What that is. Not everybody can be a Tom Brady, but some athletes know early in their career, like, yeah, I'm done. I'm gonna leave on this point. And people are like, are you crazy? You still have this? No, I'm just burned out. I'm done. I just woke up in the morning. I don't have it anymore. I don't have the desire. So yeah, simple. And he might pop up somewhere else. It doesn't mean he just, like Sam said, he just may not want to be the head of a studio anymore. You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Like there's a lot to it. I do think it lends a lot of credence though to how good the culture is at Arcane though, when you look at a lot of the people that are in the higher up positions, of how long some of the people have been there. Like I went through and I decided to backlink. He thanked a bunch of people in his blog posts of various people, such as like Dinga Bakaba, who's like the director of Deathloop. He thanked him profusely for the work he did and everything else. And you start looking into the profiles of a lot of these people. A lot of these people have been there since like 2008, 2007. They've been there for long periods of time. And that speaks volumes when you don't have turnover, when you have the same people working there consistently. And, we never hear about, Arcane doing this or Arcane doing that. We've generally always heard very positive things. And if you ever really want to understand Arcane, go watch the No Clip documentary on Arcane and some of the projects they've done. Fantastic. Wish him all the best and be interested to see if he pops up with a new studio or whatever the case may be. It's the industry's growing and more people are seizing opportunities. Now,
and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but there's consulting in that too. Like in 16 years, you have something to offer. So some people go into consulting.
Yep.
You don't have to be the 9 to 5. You can make a pretty decent living just helping other studios. So
now we get to talk about our favorite magician, our the man of tricks, the man of multiple USB hard drives, Randy Pitchford. Set the internet on fire temporarily because he announced he was stepping down from Gearbox. Except there's a caveat to it, and people celebrated very prematurely with this one. So Randy Pitchford announced that he was stepping down from Gearbox Software. Now, there's a caveat to this, because I did not know this, but Gearbox is separated into 3 divisions under one big division. So to clear this out and make this crystal clear, Randy Pitchford is still the CEO of Gearbox Entertainment, which is the overall company that is owned by Embracer Group. And then there's Gearbox Publishing, which is overseen by President Steve Gibson. There's Gearbox Software, which Randy Pitchford stepped down from, which is their games division. That's now being led by Steve Jones, who is a longtime Gearbox standard, if you will. And Randy Pitchford will now be taking on a role in Gearbox Studios, which is their TV-focused division, which makes me feel so weird to say that. So Randy Pitchford still is the president and CEO of Gearbox, as we know it. He's not necessarily as involved in the game side of things now, but he's definitely going to be more involved in the TV side of things with, the massive Borderlands thing, we're going to call it. Basically, Randy Pitchford needed more time to show Kevin Hart magic tricks, is the basic summarization of this. So any thoughts on Randy Pitchford basically stepping away from the game side of Gearbox?
Do you want me to be honest?
Of course.
This is the biggest nothing burger story I've ever heard. and I'm actually annoyed it was reported, and I'm annoyed you put it in here. Like, this is nothing. He's still the CEO of the company. That doesn't mean this means nothing. This means less than nothing. That's all I gotta say.
All it really is like Randy kind of stumbled over the rug, but didn't fall. He just kind of kind of tripped up a little, and the day continues. Nothing really happened. So I'm with Sam.
I just loved it because I just loved the preliminary excitement when Randy originally tweeted, and everyone was like, Randy's no longer part of Gearbox. Woo! And I'm just like, y'all read the whole thing. No? Okay. We're fine. It's fine. Yeah, Randy Pitchford will still be doing magic, so life will go on. And
yeah.
Now, this is the interesting one. So And this one I definitely think is less of a nothing burger than Randy Pitchford leaving part of his company to join another part of his company.
He walked across the hall.
Randy
They have a big farewell party, cutting the cake and everything, and then he walks into a different office room. It's like exactly the same. It's just on the other side of the building.
Right.
Jesus. Okay, so I'm going to completely butcher this because there's Japanese names in here, and I apologize for my abhorrent language skills ahead of time. So, Yakuza creator Toshiro Nagoshi officially left Sega and Ryo Gagotoku Studios, or RGG Studios as it's abbreviated commonly. In a post on the developer's website, RGG Studios has confirmed that Yakuza creator Toshiro Nagoshi is leaving Sega. Nagoshi is most known for not only being the mind behind Yakuza, but also the founder of RGG Studios. It was noted also, I believe it was Zehuge that pointed out, but it was also noted prior that there was rumors flying around that Nagoshi would be joining NetEase on a joint project. So I kind of want your guys' thoughts on this. I don't know how many of you are invested in the Yakuza franchise or, have played Yakuza Like a Dragon or,
we know Eric's invested with all those games he's playing this year. Like, I'm sorry, man. I had to.
Still have,
it was right there.
About 2.5 months to get all those done.
It's only like 740 to 80-hour games. It's fine.
Yeah. I have all the time in the world. I'll get that knocked out.
So it's weird because as he announced that he was departing, it was also teased that we'll likely be seeing Yakuza 8 early next year.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to, when someone who created something leaves, I never want to ring the panic bell right off the bat, because that's not necessarily the case. Because, a game is not made by one person. A game is made by the team as a whole. It's written by writers. It's developed by developers, everything else. Do you guys think this will have an impact on the Yakuza franchise, especially since that franchise has had an absolute second coming in the past few years?
Will it happen? I mean, I guess it all depends on who his successor is.
Yeah.
If he's had someone there who's been kind of hands-on and learning, and it's almost like apprenticeship in a way, it's being handed off to someone who knows and loves the franchise just as much. It could be that thing where they can take it to another level, but that just remains to be seen. It could kind of go either way, I guess, but at the same time, it sounds like another situation where it's like this guy's been on this series for so long,
Yeah. Well, and also to note too, his likely successor was going to be Daisuke Sato, who was the lead designer and producer of the Yakuza titles. He also departed the studio as well.
Well, damn.
Yeah. So, Eric, was there something else you wanted to say?
No, go ahead, man.
What I was going to say is this one does feel a little different to me. I definitely don't want to ring any alarm bells or anything, because I think there's obviously a ton of other people there who have worked on these games, and it sounds like they have a plan. It sounds like they know what they're doing. But I do think this is interesting because Bloomberg's reporting, it hasn't been confirmed, but the fact that this guy and his, partner here, whatever, has also left seems to indicate the reporting was correct. But Bloomberg reported that NetEase specifically poached him. Like, they specifically offered him a ludicrously high salary to come work for them. To me, that sounds like they want him to start up a new team. I mean, I don't know. That wasn't part of the report, but that's what that sounds like to me. If you specifically are going after a creative saying, hey, what are you making right now? We're going to double it or triple it or whatever. That sounds like you want them specifically for some purpose. So I think in that regard, my eyebrow is raised, is what I'll say. I'm definitely curious what that looks like, but I wouldn't ring the alarm bell per se. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
It's always interesting because he created RGG Studios, so it's always interesting when someone who created the studio departs. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end, obviously, because if that was the case, id Software would have died when John Romero left. But id Software did not die when John Romero left. It continued on. And it's the same thing when Carmack left and everything else. id Software persevered, kept moving forward. And I have to imagine just because 2 people left of a team of, I'm going to assume at least 100 plus. I don't know specifically with RGG Studios numbers, but I'm going to assume a fairly large studio, 2 people leaving, that'll impact leadership, obviously. But I have a hard time believing that they don't know how to make a Yakuza game on their own. I love this guy. I've seen interviews with this guy. This guy's an absolute madman. Like when everyone's like, I can't believe how wild the Yakuza games are. I'm like, go watch interviews with this guy. Like this guy did a games reveal showcase for Yakuza back in like the late 2000s, or it might have been like, I think it was the late 2000s. He was carried in on a throne by 16 women. Like, this guy was just on a whole different level than, like, we had our Western game rock stars, but this guy was, he's a legend in his own mind. So it makes a lot of sense that NetEase would want to poach him, especially with, his ability to make such a franchise like Yakuza. I'm definitely interested to see what that means going forward. Because, Sam, you might be able to shed light into this. NetEase typically purchases studios and makes investments that way, or not purchases, sorry, they make investment stakes in companies.
So unlike another Chinese mega conglomerate that's going to come up in this discussion, they don't generally fully acquire studios. Instead, they do partnerships where like they get a small tiny minority stake in a studio, and in exchange they get a license. Like for example, I think they have an agreement where they're the ones who are doing Diablo Immortal. Like, you remember that game?
Yep.
Remember that being else? Yeah, that's NetEase. They have a tiny minority stake in Bungie, and Bungie is developing a small new IP for them in exchange. So that is generally what they do. So, again, that's why I thought it was so interesting that they evidently specifically poached him, because he's not someone you get to just crunch numbers. You know what I mean? You can hire other people for that. This is a guy you get for his personality to make a specific type of team. So... sounds like they're growing. It sounds like maybe they feel they have some competition and they need to move fast, which, looking at what Tencent does, I can't say I disagree.
Yeah. And honestly, if NetEase is just going to throw money at them and go, make a new studio, make a new IP, cool. Maybe it'll be awesome. Who knows?
Yeah. But again, I think it's also that thing too, where more money is definitely good, and you can definitely get somebody to move, but it's a difference when, I guess when you're like working for you're working for a company, any old company, whatever, and someone's like, a recruiter comes along and say, hey, they're looking for this position to be filled. Your salary's going to go up, blah, blah, blah. And you say, okay, you know what? I'll move on. In his case, where he started the studio and Yakuza's been like his baby, there's still that thing where it was time, like he's okay with it, because I think even if money is thrown at you, if that's like the thing that you started and that's still your baby and you're not ready yet, you may think money will be there, but I'm not quite ready yet.
Yeah.
So it seems like he was kind of ready to move.
Yeah.
And kind of let it go. That's what it seems like anyway. But
yeah. And
no, I think you're right.
I think you're right on the nose there. And I also think too, with that Bloomberg report back in, that was August, right, Sam?
Late August.
So if that was a rumor flying around at that point in time, it's not like RGG Studios hasn't had time to kind of, think about what the next step would look like. I very highly doubt the studio doesn't have a contingency plan in place for if, he left or his partner left. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I'm excited just to see Yakuza 8, because they distinctly stated that it's going to be a follow-up to Yakuza Like a Dragon. So, yay. I'm excited. Now, this weird whole thing. So, Rockstar's finally had to confirm a few things that Tom Henderson has been leaking out of the boat. I don't know what Tom Henderson has done to shoot out the bottom of Take-Two's boat, but this man leaks more Rockstar stuff than anybody, and it's actually right.
Trilogy was leaked by Kotaku, actually.
Was it Kotaku? I thought it was Henderson on this one.
He backed them up, but Henderson was GTA 6.
Oh, Henderson was also the release date. Sorry, the release date was Henderson.
Yes.
Kotaku was the remaster. Right. Credit where credit's due. We're going to talk about Kotaku later anyway. So, GTA Trilogy Remastered, rumored to appear November 11th. Physical editions delayed, so we're going to get Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas in a remastered package. The depth of that remaster will be interesting. Seen various different things across the line, but it's official now. The interesting thing that I want to talk about, and of course, once again, this is leaked information because that's all there is until Rockstar confirms everything, is the price point. There is a rumored price point right now due to a store listing that these will sell for 58, I believe it was euros it was originally listed. So we do the old conversion ratey here. They're $70 games. It's a $70 collection on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. So how do we feel about paying for PlayStation 2 ports? They're going to also be on mobile in 2022 for $70.
And haven't they started pulling those off like the store? Like,
no, they haven't started. They're gone.
They're gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
They're gone. Yep, you cannot get them on, like, because a couple of them were the PS2 on PS4 program or whatever that whole thing was. They were there, and then PS2 Classics. That was it. Yeah, they're gone, and the Steam versions are gone. Yep. So
they're not getting $70 from me for that collection, but they will get it from someone.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I kind of feel like, for me, I don't know about you, Eric. For me, that collection enters nostalgia buy territory at like $40, maybe 50, maybe. Where it's like, okay, it is 3 of them. I need to see what improvements you've made. I need to see what kinds of differences are there, what kinds of changes, how do they play this day? Because those games would be jank central these days. Let's just be honest. So you need to improve the controls, but maybe at that 70, I'm not going to buy it, but people will. Like, it's going to be one of the best-selling games of the year.
Yep.
It's going to be. I'm just warning everyone.
And here's where they would get me at 70, no questions asked. If they said, it doesn't even have to be all of them, but if they said GTA 3 was completely rebuilt in the GTA 5 engine, while, Vice City and San Andreas were like, full-on remasters.
So I think it was reported by Kotaku when this first report came out that these are all being remade in Unreal Engine 4. That's what we heard. So,
and to counterbalance that point as well, once again, the problem with this GTA Remastered collection is the amount of facts that we can operate on is very, very slim pickings at this point. The reason they were ported, and I'm trying to remember the report I read on it. I think it was from VGC, and I don't want to misquote here, but is that they were ported into Unreal Engine 4 due to complications with the original engine those games were made in, and that basically it was unplayed. It caused lost code issues with the games, so that's why they poured them over to Unreal Engine. And that it's about crisping up the cutscenes and making the animations a little bit more fluid and feel less, PlayStation 2-y, for a lack of a better word. But they said overall that mechanically very little is going to change, which I think is the disappointing part, because I played San Andreas on, I want to say PlayStation 4, I have it on, and that was borderline unplayable with how janky it felt. And I can't imagine Vice City and 3 are going to feel much better. And then you slap a $70 price tag on it, and it's just... I think that's the big thing for me. If this was 30 USD, which would equal out to about $40 for me, they'd have me. Because like $13 a game, I could justify that.
Yeah.
But like 70 for you guys, that's $100 for me.
Yeah. Yeah, like no, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
I am not paying $100 after taxes to play 3 PlayStation 2 games that I own on PlayStation 2. Mm-hmm. It's just not happening. Not for the amount of work that's supposedly going into them. We'll wait. We'll see when they actually reveal them and everything else. But honestly, I just want Rockstar to announce one thing that isn't goddamn GTA related. Because it's like, hey, we're remastering GTA 3 and San Andreas and Vice City, and you could get the remaster of GTA 5 in 2022. And I'm like, why don't we just remaster GTA 4 too? Like, why don't we just full sender? Why don't we? Like, why don't we?
Yeah. I don't know. It makes me laugh because I know, again, what was it? It was like, yeah, Skyrim, and then GTA 5 remastered.
Yeah,
it's just
whatever Nintendo remasters next.
Yeah, these behemoths, they just have the nostalgia play, man. It never underestimate nostalgia. It's a powerful thing.
Yep.
And that's how they're gonna get that $70.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For some old janky, I don't give a damn if they put it in Unreal Engine. It's gonna be like,
and they're gonna be sitting there like Seinfeld as Elaine is putting the money down, just jumping on the cigar.
Yep, there you go. Oh my god, man!
Yeah,
the real heist is going to be the fact that they do this not once but twice in a 6-month span.
Yep.
You realize that, right? They're not doing this once. They're going to do it twice, and they're going to get away with it twice.
No. You wait till 2023 when Red Dead Redemption 2 Remastered comes out.
That's actually more reasonable, honestly.
It is a better game, so I get the argument.
Come on, Nick. You don't want Dutch's plans in 60 frames per second. We just need the money, Nick. We just need...
No,
Dutch, I don't know about you, man, but I got like $4,000 in my pocket, and this is like 18. What year was it? Like 18 something. I'm like
1899, I think. 1899.
How much money $4,000 is in 18?
Yeah,
it's like
I don't know. I know I'm pulling my weight. I'm pulling my weight.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking
I can leave,
that's just us to Rockstar, right? It's like, hey, can we have new games? Can we have a new Bully and Red Dead 3 and GTA 6? It's like, you'll get your games. We just need money. We got a plan.
Have some faith, guys.
New Red Dead Redemption 2 Remastered. You can now die from tuberculosis in 4K.
Oh my god.
Right. Glitchy bounty system in performance mode.
And featuring Red Dead Redemption 2 Online Remastered with your favorite microtransactions.
Boss rush mode. It's like, what?
It's just with a map.
Yeah. Like, I remember a boss rush. Bosses? There was a boss in there. Yeah. Good times. Thanks, Rockstar.
Great times. Great times had by all. Speaking of great times had by all, a lot of Twitch streamers were upset earlier in the week because a massive Twitch hack happened. Basically, someone full bore went online and posted the entire source code for Twitch. This included things like streamers' information, emails, passwords. Tons of people outside of that weren't streamers, even just Twitch users, had their passwords compromised. So if you have a Twitch account, go enable two-factor authentication, especially if you have your credit card tied in there because you love throwing money at millionaires. But yeah, so the big takeaway from this is that cybersecurity, even in massive companies like Twitch, sucks. Period. Full stop. End of story. This is absolutely terrifying to me because Twitch is one of the biggest streaming services. It is the biggest streaming service online, and it took someone almost nothing to just leak everything. And, Twitch is backed by Amazon, so I have to imagine they have some of the best back end available. So the cybersecurity angle of this is terrifying. But of course, that's not what anybody cared about. The big huzzah was how much money Twitch streamers were making. I'm not going to go through the list. It's online. You can find it. It's the same thing as any of the information leaked. If you want to go find it, you can Google it. I'm not linking to it. I don't want to continue to spread this stuff around. But I'm really, really confused to how people didn't think streamers were making bank. I am utterly confused to why this was news over the hack. Like, it's pretty common knowledge. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, here. Influencers influence people in exchange for money.
What a concept. What a remarkable concept. Especially because, also, we're not talking about the average Twitch streamer here. We're not talking about the average human being. We're talking about the big content creators.
Yes.
The big personalities. Yeah, no, I'm with you. What did y'all think that they were jumping from popular game to popular game because it's what they were interested in? Like, it's what they get deals to play this stuff in exchange for money, and then they get the donations on top of that. This is not, I don't know. This ain't rocket science. It's really not.
Yeah.
It's a science, but it ain't the rocket science.
Right, exactly. There is a science to it.
Right.
There absolutely is. Also, I just want to point this out because this is something that kind of, rustled my jimmies, but in a good way. For all the complaints, I'm going to get a hair spicy. I don't normally get this spicy about this kind of stuff. So record it because it doesn't happen often. But for all the complaining some people really like to do about women and them using their feminine wiles to, seduce innocent men into giving up their cash, weren't a lot of women on that top earners chart.
Well,
in fact, I don't think there were any. I think there was maybe one, and she was towards the bottom. I'm just putting that out there. I'm just throwing that into the ether for you to consider. That's all I'm saying.
Well, what I learned from the Twitch League is that if I get a couple of tattoos and get good at Warzone, I should be a millionaire. No, I'm kidding. I'm absolutely kidding. It's interesting because a lot of people are missing a lot of the nuances. Like, people are like, how did they make this much money? I'm like, dude, that's just off of Twitch. You don't even want to know what they're making off the ads, the deals on the side they're making. Like, everyone knows ad deals and everything else are worth way more than what your sub count and your view count gets you. So, like, this is a flash in the pan of what their overall wealth is. But at the end of the day, it's what the culture has. People watch this stuff. People are entertained. People enjoy it. And people are getting compensated for their time. I really don't have an issue with this. And if you thought Twitch streamers were broke, why the hell does, like, Dr. Disrespect have, like, 3 Lamborghinis? Like, I do not understand where people are like, oh, I thought they were just average Joes like me. I'm like, yeah. Me and my Tuesday McLaren. Yeah, totally. Like, it's
Monday yacht. But Monday yacht.
But overall, I think Twitch has it under control now. But all I can say is I hope going forward, companies kind of learn from this. It feels like we're at a cyber attack a day at this rate right now, of information being stolen, passwords being, stolen, credit card information being stolen, everything else. Hopefully we're doing something about this behind the scenes, because it's terrifying to me. But we move on. IO Interactive made a bunch of money off Hitman 3, and these 2 frauds haven't played it. That's the topic. That's it. I don't have anything else.
Dang. he came out swinging on that one, huh?
I mean, how long have you had that one in the chamber, Nick?
Yeah, I know. Like, he did not hesitate. That was some wild
Nick has been sitting on
accuracy there. Like,
yes, and he's been sitting on the Hitman hit like for months now. Probably after launch, like, one of these days I'm gonna get an opportunity to dunk on these 2.
Yep.
About this game.
Like, dang, dude. Okay.
Okay, so
I mean, you're right. Like, I'm not gonna. You'll notice neither of us said you're wrong. We're just
right.
So to clarify where I'm coming from, I had to get the dunk in. It's worth it for me.
I own it, Nick. I'll say that much. I have it.
Okay, so you helped to this. So IO Interactive generated $78 million in profit, which was a 136% increase on their previous year. Now, the nuance to this is they didn't release a game the previous year. So, you're trying to compare, selling Hitman 1 and 2 versus selling a new game. But IO Interactive has several projects in development right now, which is live content to be added to Hitman 3, Project 007, which I keep forgetting about, and then, of course, the unannounced RPG title that is in development as well. I feel stupid because I forget that they're making a 007 game. I forget how perfect that lineup is going to be.
It's good. It's darn good.
But yeah, any thoughts on IO Interactive? I obviously stuck this topic in here for my own selfish reasons.
No, man. Good team, man. Eric, you got anything sticks out to you?
No, I just say, honestly, well deserved. I mean, they've been kind of doing this for a long time, and it's just I think Hitman 3 hit no pun intended at the right time to get the notoriety for people to go, oh, so I'll give Nick the props because he's been beating that drum for the longest and actually beating people over the head with that drum for a very long time for not really paying attention. So kudos to them. I'll give them, definitely kudos to them. Congratulations and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, no, I'll prop in on that. I mean, I've supported them. I bought Hitman 1 and 2. I just haven't gotten to the third one yet. It is what it is. What I will say is
all of it, and I have all the sweets.
Right, exactly. You're better than me. Like you contributed definitely. What I will say sticks out to me is this interesting tidbit. Square Enix let these guys go because they were a financial disappointment. I'm sorry if it feels like I'm beating a dead horse here, but I'm just going to keep coming back to the well that maybe Square Enix statements and what actually happens with Square Enix Western teams don't quite line up in reality. Like they don't, there seems to be a disconnect here. And I just think this only reinforces that to me. It's like, I understand, because Eric, you're right. Like this game did hit at the right time. Perhaps the others didn't, but even so, like, I don't know, man. Like it's just, this is just where my head is at. Like it can't have been that much more of a success that the others were such big disappointments. But whoa, all of a sudden this is like, okay, all right, what are we doing here? Like,
and for a company like Square to overset an expectation can definitely hinder and hurt the bottom line, like to something. It can make it seem like it's not as successful as it really is. Because remember how they felt like what was it, Rise of the Tomb Raider was a failure for them? Or was it Tomb Raider?
Both. But the original,
right?
The original Tomb Raider was especially egregious because that thing sold like 10 million copies, something nuts like that, over a period of time, including the remasters. Like over a year, and they were like, "Yeah, this just isn't enough." And I'm like, 10 million Square, 10 million. That's not okay.
Yeah. And he's like, how many studios will kill to have 10 million copies of their game sold? And Square's like, I don't know. Maybe they thought that's Lara Croft. It should be 25 million easily, right? So if your projection is way off and you're overshooting, then it makes what is truly a success not look like it,
Right.
So maybe that's the thing. Like Hitman has always been successful, but not enough for them, and it's kind of set the tone.
Yeah.
Maybe they just needed to have the right metric.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to note too, with Hitman especially. I love Hitman front to back, one of my favorite franchises of all time. But I also am realistic in the fact that I understand the fact that it's a smaller end of the project. Like when you're talking about, they're talking $78 million profit, which $78 million is a lot of money. But when you start talking about major AAA IPs, that is in the smaller realm of things. So I think that definitely comes down to, me and Sam talked about this last week. Square Enix's expectations are all over the place when it comes to stuff. They're okay with a JRPG that they developed for 5 years selling 30,000 copies. But if a Western game doesn't sell 10 million, it's a crime. It's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic that they have. And it's definitely I feel they suffer from it. Jeff Grubb mentioned it. I was listening to Defining Dukes the other day, and he mentioned, the Luigi's Mansion 3 effect of Luigi's Mansion 3 sold 10 million, so why can't my game sell 10 million copies, right? And I think Square Enix gets really wrapped up in the fact that they see all this Western success and they look at the Western market as being this massive thing that will always blow up no matter what. And it just doesn't necessarily, their games don't necessarily go that way for them. Like Final Fantasy VII Remastered obviously was a massive success for Square Enix and everything else. And their JRPGs are beloved, but their Western releases typically fall short. I think the termination of that relationship with IO Interactive was based on, well, they don't make as much money as they could. Though I would bet cash money, Square Enix is kicking themselves in the arse now that they know IO Interactive's doing a 007 game, though.
Right.
But, tomato, potato. IO's doing great things. Square Enix is doing great things. I'm just glad that IO Interactive survived the separation from Square Enix, because that was something that I personally was worried about for a very long time, even up into like the Hitman 2 release and everything else. But life goes on, and much like life going on, Tencent is forever. I mean, Tencent is back at it again, throwing around money in very peculiar places. And I really think this news kind of explains a lot of why Sony went and locked down Housemarque. I'm going to pat myself on the back for this one. Is Tencent threw some more money into a European studio. Tencent has acquired a 22% stake in Polish developers Bloober Team. Now, a 22% stake is worth 77.6 million PNL, which for you Yankee Doodles is $19.6 million. Basically, this continues with, Bloober Team really expanding in terms of their partnership opportunities, because they're also partnered with Konami, I believe, because they have some sort of deal going on there for a couple of games. So now Tencent's in on the pie too. Any thoughts on Tencent wiggling their way into more and more studios?
Eric, you.
I don't really have too much extra to say about that. It's just, I don't necessarily. I didn't have it on my bingo card, but I'm also not surprised.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way of putting it. Honestly, you can honestly apply that to anything Tencent does. Like Tencent is just. I mean, look, people talk, and I don't want to get in on that whole conversation because it is a different conversation. But people want to talk about like, oh, Microsoft buying all these studios, but buying Bethesda now. Sony buying Housemarque, Bluepoint, Nixon, all this. But like, I don't know. You look at what Tencent's doing, and you can't blame them. That's kind of where I'm at. You got to shore things up right now. It's tough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest thing that. I know Tencent's portrayed as a boogeyman in a lot of aspects, and I have my own reservations about them as a company. But I think the thing that terrifies people about Tencent is they just buy majority stakes. They don't really have anything. They're not really necessarily changing anything. They're just making money. And it just seems to make people perpetually nervous when Microsoft buys a studio, you're like, oh, they're buying this studio to do this because they need this. Or when PlayStation buys a studio, they do this because they need this to do this. When Tencent acquires a studio or invests in a studio, you're like, what are you doing? Like, what is Tencent's end game goal here? Like, do they want to own half the industry? They might as well at the rate they're going with, majority stakes in a lot of companies. But I also think Microsoft and PlayStation are rapidly picking up studios in order to counterbalance this. And I think Embracer Group is another one that is shoring up the European market very, very quickly in terms of, companies and talent. But we'll wait and see how it pans out. But
yeah, it almost seems like that war is happening between Tencent and Embracer Group. Like, I know we talk Microsoft and we talk Sony, but it seems like
No, I think
they
you're
try
right.
to keep moving chess pieces away from each other. I don't even think they kind of look at Microsoft and Sony like they're kind of like, it seems like they're in their own little arms battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But you
people
don't
can
really know. Yeah.
People can talk about the whole strategy between Microsoft and Sony at the same time, but how it differs or whatever. But at the end of the day, they are more selective, like just objectively. They're not throwing money at every single thing under the sun. With them,
right?
I think you're right, Eric. With Embracer and Tencent, it seems to be much more of a how much can we gobble up? How much can we shove in here?
I'm going to get them before you can get them.
Exactly. And on both sides, I have the same question of like what Nick did, which is, okay, what is your strategy? What are you actually doing here? What are you trying to do?
Well, with Embracer, it feels a little bit... I'm not saying it's like crystal clear, but you can kind of see through the mud in terms of, they're buying up support studios that do support work on AAA games. So that's money income coming in. They've bought a bunch of old IPs and they've been bringing those IPs back, to a certain extent, but like, what's the future plan going to look like? Like, what's the long-term plan is definitely, not necessarily crystal clear. Like if they just want to bring back the AA market, it's an interesting business strategy, but with as massive as Embracer is, I feel like there's an underlying goal that we might not necessarily see for the next 5 years. And I very much feel the same thing with Tencent, and NetEase is another one. Like NetEase is invested in Bungie. Like that whole new IP that Bungie's reportedly working on, or new project Bungie's working on, is funded in partnership with NetEase. So we'll just wait and see. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
There was another investment group that used to be pretty big. They had a chunky Ubisoft. What was that?
Vivendi. Yep.
Yeah. Vivendi. But Ubisoft, I think, bought back most of those.
Yeah. Vivendi was trying to hostile takeover of them, right?
Yeah. That was a legit hostile takeover.
Yeah.
They almost succeeded, but they weren't quite able to.
What would that look like if that happened?
I wonder. That's what I'll say. I wonder.
Yeah. We're heading into a topic, but that landscape could have looked different.
For better and for worse, both. It would have been very different. That's what I'll say. But speaking of which, what is that topic, Nick?
So our discussion topic tonight, it kind of comes at a header because there was an announcement and then a game release, and it kind of cements the problem that is at the front of Ubisoft right now. We have Far Cry 6, which released to mid-level reviews. Some people loved it. Some people didn't. It's very middle of the road. And, the whole argument of, well, why do you buy a Far Cry game if you don't want it to be like Far Cry? I think a lot of detail gets lost in bull-headed arguments about this kind of stuff. But, we have a lot of meticulous details that we can discuss, of course, and, not necessarily beat each other over the head with a claw-tooth hammer over this stuff. So Far Cry 6, general consensus was it's Far Cry, for lack of a better word. And now we come to the global sin that is goddamn Ghost Recon Frontline. And I'm prefacing this because I am a Ghost Recon nerd, and I love this franchise almost as much as Splinter Cell, but that's a different conversation. Ghost Recon Wildlands is possibly one of my favorite co-op games of all time. You go around liberating Bolivia with your friends, sniping people, blowing up tanks, just having an absolute blast. It was a front-to-back great game with me and my friends spent 50, 60 hours playing and did a majority of the side activities as well. It was a blast. And then Ubisoft went, wow, Wildlands was really successful for us. And people really loved it. Why don't we put Division gear score into it? Because that's why people play Ghost Recon games. And Ghost Recon's Breakpoint's launch, for historical sake, was absolutely terrible. The game was broken. It was buggy. Nobody liked the new direction. It was so bad that they patched in an entire game mode called Ghost Mode, which lets you play Breakpoint like Wildlands. The game was discounted heavily. It was not as successful as Ubisoft obviously wanted. So they said, the general message around Ghost Recon Breakpoint was, hey, we heard you guys. We know what you want. We're listening to you. And then on the 20th anniversary of Ghost Recon, they announced Ghost Recon Frontline, which is a free-to-play, that's a very common Ubisoft thing lately, Battle Royale game, which they say they're taking their own unique spin on Battle Royale, which if I ever read another press release with the words, our unique take on Battle Royale again, I'm going to chew a bullet. But basically, it looks like Call of Duty Warzone in the third person. And you can't really say it doesn't look like that because of what they showed, that's what it looks like. So now we're here. We have X Defiant, which was revealed a few months ago, which was a Ubisoft free-to-play game that referenced a bunch of Ubisoft IPs. Very underwhelming first response from that. There was an alpha. I believe that was NDA'd, though. I never really heard anything about that. Mm-hmm. And we've got the Tom Clancy, or the Division free-to-play game, which I haven't seen anything on that since its announcements. But we're into this thing where it feels like Ubisoft is throwing darts at a board, trying to find a hit. How do you guys feel about the direction of you? Like, we've talked about this briefly before on the show, but with Far Cry 6 and then the Ghost Recon announcement, do you guys feel like Ubisoft is on the trend downward?
Eric, you want to go first, or?
My answer is going to feel more personal because that's the only way I can kind of go about it. I don't know what it will be, for an industry standpoint, because obviously their formula works for them because they've just gone all in on it. But as someone who for years was a super fan of Ubisoft, like, I always felt like they were like a developer that you could set your watch to. And in terms of, you knew overall it would be quality. It would be, fun. It would be, for the most part on point, from Assassin's Creed to Rayman to Splinter Cell, and even like their older lineage, in terms of games. This version of Ubisoft, I could care less about. They have overall lost me as a fan. I really don't care much at all about most of their franchises at this point. Like, I have pretty much all the Assassin's Creed games. I played through Origin and just couldn't bring myself to jump into Odyssey. I'm like, it's too much. It's over bloated. They're just too big. I love the idea of Valhalla, but I was just like, I can't do it. It's just too bloated. It's just too much. The last game for them I played through was Immortals Phoenix Rising. And overall, I enjoyed that game. I did enjoy what I was playing, but even at points, I was kind of like, just let me out. Like, you don't want to let me go. And it's like all the same formula. I love Far Cry 3. And I don't know. I'm even looking at Far Cry 6 and, and I love Giancarlo Esposito, and I'm hearing that his performance in it is fantastic. And I'm just like, I can't bring myself to want to play it. And shout out to those who love them. It's fine. I know there are people who they love the formula. They like to just go into that world and those worlds and clear the map. But it's too formulaic for me at this point. It's like they used to kind of set the trend. And I remember the points when I started noticing, I'm like, they're really just using the same formulas across the board in all these different games. It's like crafting and the map clearing and outpost clearing, and it was kind of just going into every game. And then seeing what they're presenting, what they had started to present with Beyond Good and Evil, and I'm like, that's not knowing what kind of leaked, some years prior of what you were planning to do, and you're going to this. It's like you're becoming this different version of a company that's not for me anymore. So I don't know. I can't say that they're going to crash and burn, but they're definitely I would say, in my personal opinion, they're in a danger of just being samey in the idea of just making money. Like, I miss the Ubisoft that took chances by doing like Child of Light, and stuff like that. That was, I don't know. Hopefully I'm not all over the place, but I'm just disappointed.
You're speaking from the heart, man. So I don't think that's inaccurate or invalid.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in what they've become. Quite frankly, I understand it, but I'm disappointed.
I think that's very fair.
Yep.
Are you done? I don't want to.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm not cutting off. No, I kind of echo a lot of that. I mean, here's the problem. Here's the thing. A Ubisoft game, like not their smaller games, but like a big Ubisoft game used to be an event.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. And it's like you can, because like Eric, let me use a comparison. You have your take on it, it's fine, but like you would agree, a Bethesda Game Studios title coming out is an event. Like when Skyrim came out, or a Fallout 4 or something like that. Like that is an event. That is a big deal. People rally around it. That kind of thing. Far Cry 3 was an event. People rallied around that game. It was wild for its time. A lot of the Assassin's Creed games were events. Even when they were dropping yearly, they were events because of how big a deal they were. And then they had their turmoil, and then they kind of reshuffled some things, and Assassin's Creed wasn't yearly anymore. And for a time, it looked like they were on a good path, but then they kind of overextended into the open world stuff.
Yeah.
So I say that to say, this is going to be really long-winded, but like you, it's kind of personal. So I'm trying to go around my elbow to get to my thumb in a poignant manner here.
Go for it.
Every single publisher, with the exception of Konami, has something I'm interested in. Konami needs to actually announce games before they don't even count. Like, right. For all the chatter around them, let them actually announce some games. We'll get back to you. But like, Sony has games I'm interested in. Duh. Microsoft has games I'm interested in. Duh. Nintendo has a couple of games I'm interested in. Okay. EA, for all their troubles, like they have some strong contenders. The Dead Space remake, the next Dragon Age, Mass Effect. Hopefully Battlefield 2042, if they can pull together, like they have games I'm interested in. Bethesda's part of Xbox, but they're still a second publisher. So like Bethesda has games I'm interested in. All these publishers, they have things, Square Enix, Final Fantasy 16 and Forspoken, things I'm interested in. I can't name a Ubisoft game coming up that I'm interested in.
Boom.
And that is the realization I had. I actually had that realization earlier today, which is like, and I'm going to be generous here. I'm going to be very, very, very generous and say I was interested in Far Cry 6, even though I haven't picked it up. I'm not picking up at launch or whatever. I'm going to, because the price is going to drop. So I'm going to able to get, I'm going to get the Steelbook version for $30, $25 a couple of months from now. Like, I know I'll be able to. I'm too much of a sucker for Giancarlo Esposito to not get it at all. I know that. So, all right. But if I'm very generous and I say Far Cry 6 was a game I was interested in, with that game now out, there is no Ubisoft game I'm interested in. I look at their lineup and I'm like, I can find something. Even if I have to dig under rocks, like I can find something from every single other publisher under the sun that I go, yeah, that looks cool. The closest I can get on Ubisoft is that I want to believe the next Assassin's Creed will be good. But even then, I'm not going to say that because I have no idea what the hell it looks like. So I'm not going to commit to that. I will wait and see. If it does look good, okay, then I reserve the right to at that point say I'm interested in that. I'm one of the people who defends Valhalla. I did like Valhalla. I know a lot of people didn't, but I did. That game was still too bloody long. So I guess I can say I'm interested in the expansion next year for Valhalla. I guess. Like, I can say that for them, but I don't know. No, Eric, you said it best when you said you used to set your watch to them. I used to set my watch to Ubisoft, too. Even if, because here's the thing, even if it wasn't something that like, oh man, I'm losing my mind here, you knew you were getting something very good and polished from them. You knew you were getting like, even if like, I'm trying to pull it out of thin air here. Even if Syndicate isn't my favorite of the series, Syndicate's a perfectly good Assassin's Creed game. Syndicate's a perfectly reasonably sized, I might add, Assassin's Creed game to play.
Yeah,
it's good. Like some of the older stuff they published, like okay, maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was a good game. Child of Light Yeah, like or For Honor. For Honor wasn't perfect, but I liked For Honor. I thought it was fun. It had new ideas. It was very different from a lot of what Ubisoft did otherwise. Like For Honor was a good hit. Like it had a comeback. No sequel to For Honor. Like we can get all these open world sequels, but we can't get a new For Honor. Like I don't know. Now it sounds like I'm all over the place, but I guess
that's what makes it crazy, because you know what this studio used to mean, or this publisher, what they meant to you as a gamer. You know, like you used to look forward to their E3.
Exactly.
Because you're like, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna? Because they always bring something special and something new and something.
Right.
And now you said you can still set your watch to them, but now they're predictable.
But not in a good way.
Right.
Not in a good way. Like someone said it best on our work call for work when we were covering the Sony event, the PlayStation Showcase last month. And I can't remember who it is. Otherwise, I would credit them. I'm sorry. But they said when the trailer came up for Extraction, they said, I'm tired of seeing this game and it's not even out. And I can't disagree. I can't say that's a false statement. I don't know. Like, I am cautiously very excited for EA's future. Bethesda's now Xbox first party, so they're not third party anymore. But like, I'm excited for Bethesda's future. I'm excited for all these different futures of all these third party companies that who aren't first party. I'm not excited for Ubisoft's future. I don't know. Like, and here's another thing. I know I'm long winded here, but we're this long in the tooth. I'm just gonna I'm gonna commit to it. Look, how do you expect me to play all these different like battle royales and multiplayer games if they like Hyperscape was a thing, but then that dropped off. But then like this is a battle royale, and then you've also got X Defiant, which is kind of a battle royale, but also not really. It's more squad based. Like, where do you expect me to find the time here? Like there is too much. I don't know. Like, I'm excited for Halo multiplayer because Halo multiplayer doesn't come out every year, and there aren't 5 teams at Xbox making a different flavor of Halo multiplayer. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Like, am I nuts here? Like,
No.
I'm not particularly excited for Twisted Metal, but I can promise you there is nothing else like Twisted Metal coming. So at the very least, it's going to be different when PlayStation, has that arrive. Like. I don't know. I just
you're
I want to be excited for Ubisoft again, but I am very pessimistic about it happening. That's just that is my honest to God professional take.
And I want to add this one other thing before Nick jumps in there. From a mechanical standpoint, gameplay standpoint, there's nothing wrong with them. Like, their games play well. Their games, I mean, I like how the Assassin's Creed like Origin and stuff, I like how they feel as far as how they play. I don't care anymore because it's gonna be the same thing. Like I said, I love the idea of Valhalla. I love the like Vikings. I love that, but I'm like, when I looked at what it was and I heard from other people saying like it's too much, I'm like, I don't have the time. I just don't have the time for it. And and hearing people say I'm enjoying some of the things that are here, but I'm 60, 70 hours into this game, and I'm still not even done.
Yeah, but I mean, Eric, like, building on that, like, not that I disagree. Like, even as a Valhalla defender, I don't disagree. But even more than that, at least those are single-player games. What else? What do they have that announced right now that isn't multiplayer?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Maybe Avatar. I think Avatar has a single-player mode, so maybe that. Maybe that if that ends up being good.
Like, it's Avatar. I'm like, Avatar's in a not like Avatar's crazy to me.
That's a whole other discussion.
yeah.
That would have been really cool a decade ago.
That's what I can't understand. Like what we're doing. I'm like, Avatar. Who's even thinking about that?
You know what happened? They bought the rights to the IP 5 years ago because they're like, Avatar 2 is going to come out. It's going to be this whole phenomenon, and then we're going to capitalize on it with a game. And then in reality is we're going to have Avatar the video game before the Avatar second movie ever happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, that movie is ostensibly next year, but they've been steadily pushing it back. I don't know if you've been paying attention. It's been.
Did they announce the release date for Avatar 3? I saw some quote tweets about Avatar.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. They haven't come out with the second one, and they're already talking about the next movie. And I'm like, I just can't wait for Tom Clancy presents Avatar featuring Sam Fisher. It's like,
dude, go ahead and laugh right now, because if you don't, you'll cry. You know there's going to be some sort of Splinter Cell collectible gear in Avatar. Like you're
going through the jungle and you find his goggles.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Or there'll be some Blue Cat person armor that kind of reflects like Sam Fisher, like gear, whatever. Yeah.
Look, new golden rule for Ubisoft. If you haven't added a new game to the franchise in less than a decade, you're not allowed to put Easter eggs in for it. You're not allowed to sell cosmetics on it. Sorry. If a kid that went to high school 4 years ago doesn't know what your game IP is, you're not allowed to put Easter eggs in it anymore. That's the rule. To kind of piggyback on what Sam's saying, I think what confuses me most about Ubisoft is their complete lack of direction in terms of their success. And it's partially that they don't highlight other things that they're very successful in. You never see Ubisoft talk about Anno 1800, but it's legitimately one of the most successful games on Steam on a regular basis. It's a massive game on Steam.
I don't even know what it is. I know of it. I don't really know what it is. It's never talked about like that.
Yeah, it's a top tier city builder, like top tier. And Ubisoft just pretends they release it. And there's tons of people at Ubisoft that are very passionate about it, but you never hear about it. And it's weird. But to Sam's point, it's not even like they're chasing success anymore. Because Assassin's Creed Valhalla was the biggest success for Assassin's Creed ever. It was the biggest release that Ubisoft had ever had with the Assassin's Creed franchise. And then less than a year later, they come in and they're like, yeah, we're going in a completely new direction with Assassin's Creed. We want to do this online, co-op, weird thing that we want to do where, you know, Assassin's Creed's a platform. And I'm sitting there like, okay, you had two groups of fans with Assassin's Creed. You have the ones that love the RPG, and you have the people that love the 20-hour game. Where did you find the people that were asking for the fucking platform of Assassin's Creed? That audience doesn't exist. People weren't like, what if Assassin's Creed was Destiny 2? No one ever thought that. And whoever it was doesn't deserve a brain.
But that's Ubisoft.
And now we're doing Ghost Recon, where they had success with Wildlands because it took the series in a new direction, but people enjoyed it for the most part. There were some people that didn't enjoy Wildlands and said far too away from the traditional sense. But we talk about that with Halo. Sometimes you need to break away from tradition in order to make something fresh. But then they were like, yeah, we're going to release the Division 2 and Breakpoint, and they're both going to have gear scores and loot grinds. And Ghost Recon fans were like, why wouldn't I just play the Division 2 if I wanted to do that? Mm-hmm. Because the Division 2 did it better than Breakpoint did. Not only did Breakpoint add in gear scores, it was bad. And then they're like, oh, well, we'll patch in Ghost Mode. And they did this whole thing about we're sorry. We misunderstood the fans. We didn't listen to you. They did this whole PR spiel about apologizing, being like, we understand. And then they pop out a Warzone clone on the 20th anniversary of the game and are like, oh, and a bunch of the old Ghost Recon games are free on PC as well. Like, I understand if there's an audience that's like, hey, I'd like a team-based tactics battle royale game. I understand if there's legitimately people asking for that. Because I don't think there's too many battle royale games that focus in on a tactical experience. Warzone is bunny hopping juiced up kids on G Fuel. Fortnite, you try to shoot somebody, they build a whole hotel with Wi-Fi in 0.3 seconds. PUBG is get shot in the back of the head from guys 300 meters away in a ghillie suit simulator. Apex Legends is I can empty a clip and a half into somebody and they don't die simulator. There's all these different battle royale games that do something different. I do not deny them the fact that maybe there is space for a tactics-based battle royale game. But when you use the words like the future of Ghost Recon as an online only PvP experience, I don't find that attractive. And I don't think they're going to pull. It's the same thing with Hyperscape. Like, who asked for Hyperscape? I remember watching previews for it, and even the people they paid to play the game, English, couldn't even fake being excited about it. Like, it was interesting. And that spoke volumes. The free-to-play Division game, we haven't seen anything on it, so I can't really comment on that. Maybe it'll be good. Who knows? X-Defiant, it's like, hey, what if Rainbow Six Siege was Call of Duty? And it's like, once again, nobody asked for that. Like, here's my end-all and be-all for Ubisoft right now. There's so many of their games they release and then they have to fix later to adjust to fan feedback. Rainbow Six Siege had to do this. Breakpoint had to do this. You know, they're releasing these games and they're not to what fans want, and then they adjust and they fix it, and then everything's good again, and then they repeat the same loop again. And I think the problem with Far Cry is they keep trying to hammer home Far Cry 3 again. They keep chasing Far Cry 3. They're like, ooh, it's a quirky villain, and he's going to really fuck with you the whole game. And I think if they stepped outside the box, I'm not saying get rid of a villain or wherever. You need a villain. And if you have a good villain and you could get Giancarlo Esposito as your villain, then do that. But the thing is that you're missing on what you could do to expand Far Cry. Even if you look back to what the original Far Cry games used to be, which were more survival focused than everything else, even if you want to pull some stuff from there or do something different, expand it, take some risks. The thing is they're taking risks in really lackadaisical ways, and then they're like pillar IPs. They just don't seem to know what to do with them anymore. Mm-hmm. And we have a pile of vaporware that is piling up with Ubisoft. Like Beyond Good and Evil 2. Where's that? Skull and Bones, you know, the thing that was supposed to kill Sea of Thieves in 2019. You know, we get a report every year going, haha, we're reworking it. What are you reworking it to? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is like, I just feel like they're making games for an audience that doesn't exist right now.
Or chasing money, chasing the dragon, so to speak. Anything like, that you rake more money in. Like,
I don't want to rag on, like, you can debate, you know, did Fortnite steal from PUBG for the Battle Royale idea? You can argue that one till the cows come home. Did Warzone steal from the Battle Royale sensation? Absolutely. They took all their favorite parts of it, adapted it, and did their own thing with it to do Call of Duty in a Battle Royale sense. But the thing is we're past the idea of Battle Royale being an original idea that you fleshed out. Now it's, oh, well, Control C, Control V. And like the fact that the worst part about the Ghost Recon reveal is the fact it looks like it's reused assets from Breakpoint. I'm not one of those people that's like, you need to make new assets for a new game. Da, da, da. Like, I'm not one of those people. But come on. And if you're going to announce something like this, do something for the other fans. Like, I wouldn't even be angry about this. This wouldn't even be a topic. If they'd been like, hey, here's Ghost Recon Frontline, the new free-to-play PvP experience, but we're also working on Ghost Recon bleh, which is going to be your traditional Ghost Recon game. I wouldn't even be mad if they did that. But all they're telling me as a customer is this is the new direction of Ghost Recon. And I am not, under any circumstances, wasting my hard drive space on it. I thought with Immortal Phoenix Rising that they kind of understood what people were, you know, criticizing them for. But at this point, I just don't think there's any ears open there anymore. It just feels like nobody's listening anymore.
Yeah. I would say even by the end of it, Immortals did seem like it was trying to do that different thing. And then once you really got into it, and by the time you got to the end of it, you're like, nope, it's UB formula. It's UB formula. I mean, the subject matter is what carried that game for me.
Right.
But it still suffered from it went too long.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was a perfect opportunity for them to hit the 20-25 hour mark, get in, get out, and it would have been great. But then they wanted to sell all these DLCs and all these microtransactions and everything, right? And it's a lot of the reason why I feel like we haven't seen Splinter Cell is because they can't they don't want to do a single player. They don't want to make it Assassin's Creed-ish, right? But they don't really know how to UB formula Splinter Cell right now. So they obviously care about Splinter Cell. They care about Sam Fisher because they're willing to put him in anything, right? I'm surprised he hasn't shown up in Fortnite, but
you stop right now.
It's probably gonna happen eventually.
No.
So the question I have is based off of what we're talking, and I've thought about this. And I know people go back and forth in every E3. It's like Splinter Cell. I'm like, at this point, I don't even want them to. I don't necessarily even know if I want them to touch it. What is it going to be?
No,
I don't think at this point it'll be anything that anybody's going to be happy with.
Well, look. Don't you remember Sam Fisher? Remember that snarky Ubisoft PR response to when someone was like, "What about Splinter Cell?" And they're like, "Sam Fisher's featured in this new mobile game." Blah 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 blah. That game's already shut down. It was a massive failure because who knew? People didn't want to play a mobile game focused around the great heroes of Ubisoft games, such as Shield Guy from Rainbow Six Siege.
Right.
But that's the thing is like, I believe you can chase both because like EA does stuff, you know, they do their sports games and, you know, I hate the yearly sports cycle. I'm waiting for the first sports game company to sit there and go, no, our sports game's a platform. I'm waiting for that. That will be interesting to me. The first sports game that goes, no, we're going to update, do graphical changes and make this a platform. And then, you know, take it from there. I think it'll be a long time before that because there's still idiots that buy Madden every year at $60 and now $70, and that's never going to change. Right. But I just EA does other things that make, you know, they have their indie projects, right? We get so like all of Joseph Ferris's games are thanks to EA publishing, right?
Yeah.
Like you can do the stupid big AAA dumb stuff and, you know, recycle a palette repeatedly, as long as you're still, you know, putting some new paint in that palette occasionally. Like Valiant Hearts is still one of my favorite games I played on Xbox One. And that was a Ubisoft original. And games like that just don't exist in the Ubisoft hemisphere anymore.
Yeah, and it's almost like EA has become what UB was at one point.
It's weird. It's weird how the tables has turned. If you had told me 5 years, or not even, I'll say 7 years ago, start last generation, that Rockstar would only be making GTA, Ubisoft...
Or remaking GTA, or re-releasing GTA.
Yeah, re-releasing GTA. Blizzard would be struggling to get a game out the door. And that Ubisoft wouldn't be making smaller games anymore, and that everything was a massive either free-to-play game or a massive 100-hour game, I would have called you crazy. But now, here we are. And I see people all the time, they're like, now PlayStation or Xbox can buy them. I'm like, I don't want either one of these guys spending more than $5 on Ubisoft right now, because there's something creatively bankrupt at the center of Ubisoft right now. And I don't know if it's in management. I'm assuming it's in management, but it's bankrupt right now. And it's going to be a long time before people can put their faith in them. Yep. That's all there is to it.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. So when we come back around to the next E3, people go, can you imagine? Like the stage goes dark and all you see is like the 3 dots and it's like, no, I can't imagine anymore, because it won't be what you think it's going to be. Splinter Cell should be, in my estimation, you know, that game that hits about 20-25 hours. And again, once they figure out what they want to do with it, it's going to be some 70-80 hour bloated thing probably, or it's going to be something where it's not even really you're Sam sending you out on missions, but you're your own spy, and it's like it's going to be some weird freaking thing that they can microtransaction and try to platform it. It'll be Splinter Cell as a platform.
Wow, I didn't really realize that I needed deep-seated depression tonight, but thanks, Eric.
Sorry.
Well, this has kind of been boiling for a while, right?
Yeah.
This has been building up for a while. This talk was a long time coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you know what the worst part is now that Sam said it, I Googled while we were talking, and I'm sitting there going, wow, there legitimately is not a single Ubisoft game I'm willing to spend money on right now. And that's wild. Like, you're talking to someone that has, I don't even want to look at how many hours I have in Siege. You know, all the games I've played from Ubisoft over the years. It's sad. But we'll just have to see how it goes.
It's going to go shitty. The thing is, too, is does Beyond Good and Evil 2, does it, at this point, what is it? Because they don't even talk about it.
I don't know.
Out there with Skull and Bones.
I legitimately don't know. I can at least take a guess at what Skull and Bones is. I can make a guess, and I might be right, I might be wrong, but I couldn't tell you what Beyond Good and Evil 2 is. I have no clue.
Again, they're trying to they want to be platform. They're almost doing, and this is no slight to the dude, but remember like with Cliffy B, he was chasing the popularity as opposed to doing making something that was creative and wholly his. It's and again, if you're chasing something because you think it's just going to make you the dough, you're chasing the dough. They all want to make money. I get that. 100% get that. Sure. But if you're chasing the formula that tries to make the money before you're actually coming up with the ideas that people want to really see, you're already failing.
And I think the thing is the free-to-play market is the wild card for a lot of people. There's no formula to success in the free-to-play market. You saw PUBG was a paid experience, but you look at Fortnite Battle Royale, the way that blew up. But I think the key thing that made Fortnite blow up was A, it was cartoonish, so it was kid-friendly, and B, is the building. As much as I hate the building because I'm old and I cannot build anything that fast, I need a case of beer and a weekend to build a shed, nonetheless build a tower in less than 5 seconds. Fortnite had the appeal that had these different caveats to the game mode itself. It was doing something unique on an already established idea. And with Ubisoft, it feels like they're copying ideas, but they're not adding a spin to it, where that hook where you're like, oh, that could be interesting. That moment everyone had with the Halo Infinite multiplayer reveal when they shot the grapple hook we saw the grapple hook for the first time, and everyone was like, what's that? That's cool. Right? That kind of moment, there's nothing like that here. And hopefully they'll discover that or figure it out or something. I want them to be successful, but they just fight it every step of the way. Just make another big Assassin's Creed RPG. I don't like them, but there's tons of people that do. So do that. Do the thing that people like.
You know what? As you've been talking, as I'm thinking about it, Splinter Cell is going to be a battle royale.
No. Can you stop? Okay, Eric's done.
But think about it. Think about the aesthetic of Splinter Cell. Don't you see that kind of Ubisoft thinking in terms of that could be a battle royale?
Spies versus mercs, but oh no.
Everybody creates their own spy, and you're off and running.
No. If they want to do that, what they need to do is they need to create a super AI that plays Sam Fisher, and then put 99 people on a map, and you have to survive super AI Sam Fisher.
So it's Evolve, but
the monster is Sam Fisher. Right. Okay, but that actually, now you've got me thinking. I actually not in the battle royale sense, but how cool would it actually be to have a game where, and this, you can even kind of bring in some Deathloop inspiration here, where you're just a run-of-the-mill security guard or run-of-the-mill soldier, and you are trying to survive the badass super secret agent who comes in and just wipes everybody out across the base.
I got it.
Like a horror game, basically.
I got you. I got you, Sam. Five Nights at Sam Fisher's.
Shut up. All right. Anyway, that's it. I'm not. No.
Yeah.
The simulation has officially broken. Now we're gonna get into these community questions before this goes more off the rails than it already has. We got some good ones. So we are almost at the end of 2021. What I want to know is there a game that is currently topping your game of the year list that you can't see getting knocked out in the next month and a half?
I've said mine before, so one of y'all go first.
For me, it's still between Death's Door and Psychonauts 2.
It really is the year of the platformer this year. It really is.
Strong platformers this year, man. Strong platformers. I mean, I've said it before, so I'll keep it brief. Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts 2 is very much still at the top of my list. Deathloop is in a very secure, probably not getting bumped second place, but yeah, Psychonauts 2. Yep.
Yeah, see, I'm going to be the only guy that... And see, it's wild to me. Hitman 3 came out this year, but it's actually not my favorite game this year. It's my number 2 favorite game. My number 1 favorite game this year, front to back, was Resident Evil Village. And that feels so...
That's my number 3, so...
It feels wild for me to say, but after playing through it, and I replayed through it again recently, all of the different horror elements that they tied into from so many different franchises, but made it into one cohesive game, is so incredible. And I'm never not going to think about that game. And it had nothing to do with a 9-foot-tall vampire lady.
This has been a strong year.
Classic monster stories. Built into Resident Evil. Their takes on it.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because when we start talking Game of the Year picks now, because we're in October, there's some big games coming out. You know, Halo Infinite, Forza Horizon, Battlefield, Call of Duty, etc. If anyone on this show picks Call of Duty as their Game of the Year,
no, it won't be me.
I don't think you need to worry about that. I really don't.
I really want to do a video skit where it's Eric going into a GameStop and trying to figure out which is the most current Call of Duty game.
Oh man, I'd be so lost. I'm like, which one is it? Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. It's been a strong year for games, even though it's dry out here.
T-shirts.
T-shirts. T-shirts and merch. But yeah, no, it's been a great year for games, and we'll be doing a Game of the Year show. Don't you worry. And that will be full of arguments and me calling these guys frauds for not playing Hitman 3, which is the greatest game that came out this year, second greatest game that came out this year. I will also go back and review our games that we promised we would finish in 2021, like Sam with Half-Life and Eric.
Okay. All right, I need an exemption on the original Half-Life. You can still charge me with the others, but my GPU fried, and I have not been able to play any PC games this year at all. So I need an exemption on that one.
I am sending you the orange box. It has Half-Life on it, and it's backwards compatible. You're welcome.
No, the Xbox version does not have the original Half-Life on. It has Half-Life 2.
Half-Life 2. That's it.
Which I have played. So, no.
Wait, whoa. You've played Half-Life 2, but you've never played...
We had this discussion. We did this already.
Yeah, but I smoke a lot of lettuce, okay? So, like, memory's not good. I'm going into, this is I can hear Fortunate Son playing in the background.
All right. My point is slam me for the others, but I need an exemption on that one. I think that's perfectly fine.
That is fine. That is fine. All right. I will let you have that one. Eric, of course, is going to finish all the Yakuza games between now and our final December show.
We're rooting for him. It's looking good.
Got to get started now, like right after the show.
I think I've got The Witcher 3, Alan Wake, which got remastered, so I might get one. I was waiting for the Witcher 3 next generation update, but I'm slowly running out of time for CD Projekt Red to put that out this year.
I don't think that's likely, and I don't think. I mean, Cyberpunk ain't happening at all. Just to be
no, Cyberpunked.
What they're hoping for with that is like eventually people will just forget.
No, they won't. The thing is like 2 years from now, Ivan will still be tweeting at CD Projekt Red going, "So where's the multiplayer, guys?" He's that one dude that remembers. I swear he's got calendar reminders on that shit. So our final question for this week is a greatly discussed thing, but we're going to approach it from our angle, of course, versus the angle of other people have discussed this topic. Hey guys, so as we all know, Kotaku's going to Kotaku, but I think there's an interesting conversation to be had here. What do you guys think? Let me read this properly. Where do you guys think the line is between emulation and piracy? Where is that line to be drawn? And where do you guys personally draw that line for yourselves?
It's pretty straightforward for me. As far as emulation goes, if it's something that's not readily available, like to you, like some old retro things or something like that's just going to exponentially be super expensive to even try to attain, to pull together, to find, on a secondary market or whatever, then, or the company's just not making it available, then go for it. Do your thing. But if it's like something that's readily available, current, completely possible to get your hands on, then no, don't do it. That's just kind of how I look at that. Boring answer, but
No, I mean, but the problem is having common sense and giving a straightforward answer often is a boring answer. Like, so it's not spicy, but I agree with Eric. Like, is it a game you can play? Like, can you buy it on a store? And yes, that includes like backward compatibility. Like, maybe there isn't a PC version, but like it's in the 360 back compat stuff on Xbox. Like, okay, buy it. Like, come on, what are you doing? Just buy it there. They made it available. You don't need to emulate it. Is it literally impossible to get otherwise? At that point, I kind of feel like that's the company's fault. Or maybe it's not their fault. Like maybe they lost the code or they lost the rights or something. Or there's some weird situation there. Like that stuff happens. So I'm not saying it's always their fault. But the point is, if you literally can't, okay. If we're talking about a certain big Nintendo game that literally just came out, why are you even discussing this?
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Just knock it off.
So here's the thing. I'll draw my line in the sand, and then I'm going to lightly hammer on a point here. So my line in the sand is basically the same as Sam and Eric's. If I can buy it through a storefront on any console, I don't care if it's my PlayStation, my Xbox, or I can buy it on Steam. GOG is a great resource for old games. And as well as the fact that GOG will sell you the game with the mods pre-installed that fix the game if it was broken or suffers from broken code, lost code, whatever the case may be. There are games that exist outside that realm. There are games on the SNES that you won't be able to find cartridges for because every motherfucker's bought them and they're in a glass case somewhere.
Or the batteries are dead in them and they're in a thing. Yeah.
Emulating like NES games, SNES games, stuff like that, I really don't have a problem with. I don't even necessarily have a problem with the PlayStation 3 emulator that's been worked on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like Metal Gear Solid 4. You can, if you don't have a PS3 already, and like good luck getting one if you don't. Like, if you're not grandfathered, you're not going to be able to play that. Just be honest with yourself. You are never going to be able to play that otherwise. So,
and this is the thing, and this comes down to company policy too, is if someone's like, I'm downloading an emulator so that I can play Metal Gear Solid 4. We'll use that as an example. And I'm you know what? All right, that's fair. You really can't You can't play it anywhere else unless you go buy a PlayStation 3, take the PlayStation 3 home, hook up the PlayStation 3, plug the PlayStation 3 into the internet, wait 20 years while it updates.
Right.
Wait another 4 years for the game to install.
Yep.
And then you can play Metal Gear Solid 4 in all its glory. I've never even played it because it's not accessible to me. And it makes me so sad because I hear it's a really good one. If someone wanted to play that through an emulator, I'd have no problem with that. Now, if you're emulating Uncharted 1, I'm kind of like, okay, there's a collection for that. You can buy that. And the thing is the Metroid thing is it's coming from a place of privilege. And the Metroid Dread case is nothing more than that. Is people have become accustomed in the past few years that every game that releases comes to PC. PlayStation's doing it, Xbox is doing it now. You know, eventually everything comes to PC. It's great. It's awesome. It's a great business strategy going forward that more and more companies are going to sink their time and money into developing PC ports for. Just because a game releases does not mean you are owed any right to have it on your platform of preference. Period. End of story. You are not owed Metroid Dread because you own a PC but don't own a Switch.
Mm-hmm.
It is not Nintendo's fault for not porting that to PC. That is not part of their global marketing strategy. You can get mad if you emulate Mother. I think it's Mother 3. I think it's the big one. Or like, you know, some of the really old games that Nintendo's left way back in the back catalog. Like, I am never going to yell at someone and be like, well, you can't emulate Super Mario RPG, because Nintendo has clearly proven they don't give a shit about that anymore. So if you want to emulate that, do it till the cows come home. But you do not get to sit there the week a game releases and goes, whoa, I don't have a Switch, so I should be able to play this because it's a game being released, so I'm going to pirate it. That's just a shitty justification for doing a shitty thing. And people don't want to look at it like that, but it is what it is. You can sit there and try to, you know, moral loop yourself through it. But if you have to make excuses for what you're doing, then you yourself know ultimately what you're doing is wrong.
Yep.
That's all there is to it. It's not hard. It's not, you know, it's... I don't understand how this was a complicated subject. I really don't. I don't understand.
And yet. And yet.
And I also... Okay, the one differentiation I want to add on that, you know, to close out this show, is I hated the fact that we had, you know, emulation, hacking, and then modding all lumped into it like it's all the same thing. Modding to me is like a love letter to a game. Most modders do that stuff for free. They make free expansions. They don't charge anyone for it. And they do all these great things, weird, wonderful things. Anyone who plays a Bethesda Softworks game knows how wonderful the worlds of mods are. And those people do those mods, you know, out of passion for that game. And, you know, Bethesda's monetizing it, paying creators. There's a whole debate to be had over there about how that's handled. But ultimately, modders extend games. There's even points where you look at Vampire the Masquerade. That game released so broken it could not be completed. And people were so passionate about that game when it released on PC. Modders legitimately fixed it so it could be played through to completion. And fixed a game-breaking bug in the game. If you download that game on GOG, there is a handwritten code from modders from back in the early 2000s that fixed that game. And to lump modders in with pirates and everything else, it's gross. If you don't understand the PC environment, don't talk about the PC environment. Period, full stop, end of story. You do not need to have a single hot take for every single thing that comes out. It is not necessary. And also, if you don't share it, they'll stop writing it. Click on the content you want to see. When you see someone do a developer interview, click the shit out of that. Because then media companies will see, oh, they're really interested in developer insights. We should do more of that. Then they'll sit down at a team meeting and tell people like Sam, hey, Sam, we want you to interview more developers because that's where the audience is leaning right now.
Yep.
But instead, you'll have big media sites that own sites like Kotaku. They'll go down to editorial in Kotaku and go, you know what? That shit you did that made everyone angry, that worked really well. So keep doing that. Not all sites operate on that. There are some sites that are lucky and can avoid that, but there's a lot of sites that fall prey to that, unfortunately. So just don't support the shitty stuff. Support the good stuff. That's it. That's all there is to it. I do not want to see another Kotaku article drama in my feed for another month.
Nope. They know they're fishing with dynamite.
I can't even be bad because fishing with dynamite works.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. But I that's all we'll say is support the content you want to see and ignore the stuff you don't want to see.
No, social media is built on drama. People they can't thrive on positivity, but drama and hostility, things like that, push things forward. That's what they thrive on, Because you're right. I mean, if you're not retweeting and sending people back to it, it's like, hey, everybody, this horrible thing happened. Come look, And then what do they do? They look, they click, they go, and Kotaku wins. And not just Kotaku, all of them. They won.
Yeah. Oh,
you did exactly what that mission was. You did it.
It's why we have a whole generation of people that when a fight breaks out, instead of jumping in to help or stop the fight, we have a bunch of people that whip out cell phones to be the first ones to post on social media. Yeah. We have an entire, I'm not even going to say a generation because I don't want to be one of those people being like, this newfangled generation sucks shit. I don't want to be one of those people, but we have a whole group of people that have become too comfortable on social media to just say wherever they feel like without getting their teeth pushed through the back of their necks.
Yeah.
And that needs to change.
Isn't that what Mike Tyson said? People have forgotten what it feels like to get punched in the face for saying something stupid to somebody or something to that effect. Because social media puts the barrier in between you and them.
Well, see, the problem is if Mike Tyson says anything with an S in it, I'm going to immediately giggle and then get my face caved in.
Well, I mean, I'll give you the perfect example of how, anger, drama, hate, are more attractive to people on social media than positivity and everything else. Is like when, GameStop didn't have my steelbook for Lost Judgment. I immediately posted it and I added them to say, hey, this is unacceptable. Like you guys are supposed to fulfill this and do this. 70, 80, likes, some odd retweets, people kind of replying, and dunking on them and saying they suck and this and that, blah, 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 blah. Once I received the steelbook, they immediately jumped on it. Like, I mean, they were in my DM within the hour to say, hey, we're sorry about that and we're going to fix it. And before the day was out, they were like, hey, there's one on the way to you. A few days later, I had it. I posted that.
Awesome.
Hey, shout out to GameStop. You guys, immediately jumped on my issue, took care of it. It's appreciate it. Maybe 10 likes, no retweets, or maybe one retweet, one reply. See the difference in that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or I mean, I can post, jokes all day long, or just something positive or whatever, and then, the minute you propel and push something, negative, that's when you get more engagement. And it's funny because there are people who follow me who they don't engage unless I'm either being positive about the platform they like or negative about the one that they don't like.
Of course.
But I do have people that interact with me all the time on no matter what I'm posting, whether I'm posting something about the family, something about jokes, and those are the people that I rock with the most and they get my attention the most.
Right.
But there are people who follow me, like I don't hear from them. I don't get a retweet from them. I don't get any of that stuff unless I said something positive about the thing that they care about.
Right.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden they show up.
Right.
Never see them, never hear from them, any of that. They show up when I'm positive about their platform or I'm negative about the one that
their hyper specific thing.
Very much so. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Social media breeds people into their hyper-specific thing. It becomes the most important thing, right? It's really easy for people to hyperfixate. And I think that social media in the hands of people that might not be in the best state of mind can be a dangerous thing.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
It's a weapon.
And I absolutely, hold no hate. I've received tons of hate mail. I know Sam ruined Resident Evil 3 for somebody.
I'm not even doing that one. That one I just don't get. Like most of them, it's just like, all right, whatever, you're being idiot. Like that one, I don't get that one. I'm like, I don't know.
But with all this being said, like I've had people make threats against my kids. The whole 9 yards. People get stupid. Never held it against anybody because 9 times out of 10, if someone's acting that hostile, they're going through something. So be a little kinder. Be a little nicer. Be an asshole to me on Twitter because it's fun. Now, if you don't want to be assholes, you can go follow these guys. Sam, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Samuel Talbert. That's TOLBERT. And you can find me writing stuff over at Windows Central and its sister sites. So check that out.
Absolutely. And Eric, where can people find you?
You can also find me on Twitter, EC Jackson with an X, and also Wednesday nights on Brat Podcast at 9 o'clock.
Absolutely. And I'm Nicholas Downey. You can find my written work at lordsofgaming.net. And of course, you can find any video work and podcasts here on Gaming Perspective. And of course, you can check me and Ivan out on Cheat Code Radio. We return this Friday with a brand new episode talking Back for Blood and a bunch of other stuff. So stay tuned for that and appreciate you guys as always. And we will see you guys next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye for now.